involves cultura. And there is some culture here now about Espanol. Now, just so that you're aware, my degree in Spanish is actually in linguistics. So if you ever want to do like word games or word shit or word stuff like that, that's my interest. Like, I like looking at words and the history, and you know, I'm one of those that'll post weird grammatical things and like, hey, figure out why this is right, even though it sounds wrong, you know. And so that's just me. I'm a word nerd, okay? And so if you ever want to talk about stuff like that, yeah, hey, you can be my best friend, all right? But I'm also interested in a lot of the culture that goes behind, all right, El Español. And so a couple of things, and I'm getting this info from the 2 pages that are here. So obviously we're not going to read through all of it because that would be really boring. But a couple of things. Now, this book is about 2 years, maybe 3 years old. So some of the numbers have changed, okay? There are about, worldwide, 490 million native speakers of Spanish, okay? It is the second most spoken language on earth. Any ideas what number 1 is?
English.
Not English. Mandarin, yes, Chinese. There's 2 billion of them, for crying out loud. There are not 2 billion English speakers. All right, there's 2 billion Chinese. All right, if you put English is number 3, though, it's right behind Spanish.
Oh, I thought English was higher.
Higher than 2 billion? Oh, hell no. All right, literally every English speaker and every Spanish speaker, men and women, would have to have like 10 babies, like right now. And we still wouldn't catch up to the Chinese. All right, it's just that many people. Sometimes we don't understand the enormous of the population. Okay, it is huge. So yeah, it's just sheer numbers right now. Okay, so number 2, all right, and yes, number 3 we'll put Inglés. All right, so it's actually kind of cool because if you can speak both English and Spanish, you're communicating with close to 1 billion people on the planet. All right, so it's kind of a good thing. All right, to know both. Of course, if you can learn Chinese, then you can pretty much speak to like half the world, along with English and Spanish. You know, so you're good to go. All right. Now, there are 21 countries where Spanish is an official language. Now, this number includes Puerto Rico, which is part of the United States. Okay. But they count it as a because sometimes Puerto Rico is sometimes counted as its own thing, and then sometimes it's part of but it is part of the United States. Okay. Out of those 21 countries, obviously there's one in Europe, and that's where it all started, Spain. There's one in Africa, which is Equatorial Guinea. I can never spell the Guineas right. I know there's a couple of Guineas in Africa. So I'll just like kind of slur it at the end. You can figure it out. But every other Spanish-speaking country is in the Americas, from Mexico all the way south. Okay. Now, this number does not include places like the United States, where there is a sizable Spanish-speaking population, okay? The U.S., Canada, there's a couple other places, the Philippines, where you do have people that speak Spanish. If the United States was counted as a Spanish-speaking country, it would be the second largest, okay? That's how many Spanish speakers there are here. The largest Spanish-speaking country, Mexico? No. Yes, okay, they have the most. Number 2, if we counted it, would be the United States. But it's actually Colombia, like true Spanish-speaking countries. Yeah, Colombia is next, and then clear on down the line. All right? I mentioned the Philippines because once upon a time, Spain ruled over the Philippines. And so while they don't speak Spanish there, like fluently, and I hate to say it like this, the Filipino language, because there's actually different ones, but the main one, Tagalog, a lot of the words in Tagalog are actually Spanish. I was shocked to find out that in Tagalog, the days of the week are lunes, martes, miércoles, jueves, viernes, sábado, domingo. And I was just like, yes, I can speak Filipino. Well, just the days of the week. And there's a couple other things. All right. Now, Spanish itself descended from Latin. Okay, so it started off as Latin 2,000 years ago, and then as time went on, it spread and it changed into different things. Okay, French, Portuguese, Italian. All right. So those of you that mentioned before on the first day of class that you've studied French, the grammar's the same. That's why I tell you. You'll probably be able to use the grammar. Okay. Spanish and Italian sound kind of alike. I've been to Italy. I was able to get by using my Spanish and them speaking to me in Italian. As long as they spoke slowly and as long as I spoke slowly, we could basically understand what the other person was saying. There were a few words every now and then that I remember orange was a different word. I'd be like, naranja? And they'd say something else. I'm like, okay, now we're screwed. And so they'd say it in Italian, and I'm like, puerta, porta. Okay, door, type of thing. And, one is uno in both languages. Two is different, dos versus due. But I could understand that due, like a duo, two people. All right. So, yeah, I made it work. And I've had other, Italians tell me, yeah, we went to, Mexico or Spain or whatever, and you can make it work. Okay. But when it comes to Spanish, though, the reason why it's called Spanish is because it comes from where? Spain. But believe it or not, I am actually not teaching you Spanish. I am not speaking Spanish.
Castellano.
Yes. The language is actually, its real name is Castilian. Because there are other languages in Spain that have just as much claim to the name Spanish as Castellano, as Castilian does. The next largest one is Catalan.
They speak that in Spain, right?
In the eastern part, next to France. There's Gallego, which is in English it's Galician, which is in the north of Spain. There's Leonés. And then finally, I'm just going to use it in English, Basque, which is in the northeastern part of the country, El Basco. And so, yeah, each one of these languages has just as much right to be called Spanish because they're also spoken in Spain. They're very similar. When I hear someone speaking Catalan, I can understand what they're saying. I have one book in Catalan. I can actually read it. Don't ask me to speak it or to try to return a conversation because I'll just do it in Castilian. All right. But some of the other languages, though, like Leonés, that one's a little bit harder. Basque is unintelligible to me. Although some people are like, no, you just got to have them talk slowly. I'm like, no, it's just way too different. All right. There's some mix, but it's just way too different. Now, obviously, most people in Latin America, Mexico to Argentina, all right, speak this one. And that should tell you a little bit about the history. Where did all the colonizers or where did all the people that settled into the Americas come from? Europe, but specifically what part of Spain? The part of Spain where they spoke Castile. Yeah, Castile or Castilla. That's where they came from. If the explorers had been from the north, I'd be teaching you Galician, Gallego, and we'd all be speaking it right now, okay? Now, one of the other things about Spain as well, about the language, okay, and this affected all of them, but we'll keep it to Español for now, okay, is that in the year 711, okay, a group of Muslims known as Moors invaded from Africa. Okay, they remained in Spain until 1492. Okay, because they were Moors, because they were Muslim, their language was Arabic. And so today, 30% of Spanish words are actually Arabic or Arabic in origin. All right, so my shirt in Spanish is camisa, in Arabic it's camis. All right. The word for sugar in Spanish is azúcar. In Arabic, it's shukar. And there's a bunch of other ones. I actually have a video clip that shows the similarities. I know in Arabic, sometimes people will say inshallah, Allah willing or God willing. In Spanish, we say ojalá, God willing. Okay? All of that comes because for 700 years, Spanish and Arabic were side by side. All right? So a lot of Arabic influenced Espanol. And then later, when Spanish came to the Americas, okay, the Native American languages influenced Espanol. So for example, okay, being from Mexico, all right, Aztecs, a little bit of Maya, okay. In Mexico, an avocado is called an aguacate. That is actually the Aztec word for it. It's not Spanish, okay?
I saw that I was reading in aguacate. It means testicle.
Yeah, because it kind of looks like a male testicle. Yeah. And so, no, seriously, aguacate literally translates to testicle fruit.
I don't remember which language was.
It's Nahua. It's Aztec.
Oh.
Every other Spanish-speaking country calls it a palta. That is the actual Spanish word for avocado. Palta. Palta. But in Mexico and maybe some other places, it's aguacate because we use the Aztec word. Same thing with the word for turkey. In Mexico, it's a guajolote. Does anyone know what the Spanish word for turkey is?
Pavo.
Pavo. Okay? Yeah, every other Spanish-speaking country will use pavo. Mexico uses guajolote because, boom. Now, this is not unique to Mexico. If you go to other places that have a Native American, high percentage of Native Americans like Bolivia or Peru or Guatemala, a lot of their local Spanish is actually not Spanish, but the local indigenous language. Okay? And so every now and then I encounter certain words and I'd be like, okay, yeah, that one I've never heard before. And people would be like, oh, because it's a Quechua word, or it's a this word, or it's a Guarani word, or it's a, an Inca word. So in that context, Spanish has been influenced. Okay? To finish off, once again, I'm not going to read all of this, but if you look at the different examples, it talks a little bit about what I've spoken about today. So for example, it gives you a little bit of the history of the language in Spain and some of the influences in España. Okay, it talks about Mexico and some of the influences that have affected Spanish in Mexico. Okay, if you go to the next page, Central America and the Caribbean, because Caribbean Spanish and Caribbean culture is slightly different from Mexico and España. Okay, and then of course finally South America, South America, also much different from those other places. Yes, they were all influenced by Spain, but then other influences arrived. The most obvious one, I'd have to switch that and I'm not gonna, but why do people in Argentina and Uruguay and Chile and other places say ciao instead of goodbye, or instead of adios? Well, Italian immigrants in the 1800s came to those places just like they came to the United States. And then later on, after World War II, you had more Italian immigrants, but you also had certain German immigrants as well. So I remember being in South America, in Argentina, and seeing tall, blonde-haired, blue-eyed people with a name like Pablo Kloster, and I was just like, where the hell do you get a Spanish first name and a German last name? And they'd be like, yeah, mi abuelo, my grandpa immigrated from Germany, like, after the war. And I'd be like, oh, former Nazi? Mm-hmm. They'd be like, yeah. So that's where, like, the Nazis that escaped, ran off to. And then mixed with the local people. And so, yeah. And so you do get a lot of Italian words, a lot of German words in South American Spanish. And you do get that influence. Okay? So, we're going to end with culture today.